And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to be making a meal that you could serve for breakfast, but you could also serve it for a dinner. I love to have breakfast foods for dinner. We're going to make a Swiss egg scramble casserole. We're going to serve a strawberry Danish on the side, or you could make it with raspberry, which is what I'm going to do today because that's my favorite, but you could use anything. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. And then I'm going to show you a quick, easy way to make some hash browns, but we're going to get started on the casserole. Now, I have here just a large nonstick skillet. I've got my oven preheating, and I have a baking dish. And I just have about 5 slices of this is the country-style white bread. I don't mind the crusts on mine. If you want to take the crust off, you can. But I don't mind it being on mine. And I'm just going to cut this into cubes. And I'm actually going to soak it in some milk. You want a couple of cups, which is about 4 to 5 slices of bread. And you want to make sure that you use a serrated knife to do this because it is a little easier. All right, once you get those cut into cubes, go ahead and soak it in some milk for just a minute. About 3 or 4 minutes is fine. You just really are trying to soak in that milk into the bread. Kind of making a panade, like you do when you make meatballs or meatloaf. All right, we're just going to let that bread absorb most of that milk. In the meantime, you want to break 8 eggs into your dish. I'm also going to stir in some salt, some pepper, and some seasoning salt. This is a very, very easy dish. I'm going to preheat a large skillet over like medium-high heat because we're going to scramble the eggs. I like to beat mine pretty good. And if you'll add a splash of milk or water to your eggs, they beat up lighter and fluffier. Or you could just use the reserved milk out of the egg mixture. Either one would be fine. I'm going to melt a couple of tablespoons of butter in my non-stick skillet. I'm just going to melt that down. Let me cut that in half. Be a little easier to melt. There we go. Need a little knife. Just melt that down in there. I think eggs need butter to cook in. I just think they taste so much better. This adds a lot of flavor to it. Just kind of get that going. Now, there's differing views on whether to scramble eggs low and slow or hot and fast. I'm of the camp of lower the temperature and slowly scramble the eggs. I think they come out fluffier, so that's what I like to do. We're just going to add all those eggs into the dish, and we're going to scramble those. You will need some sliced Swiss cheese. If you don't have Swiss, you could substitute, like white cheddar, or really any kind of cheese that you like would work. You would not want to use a really strong flavored cheese like Parmesan or something like that, but all right. Now, while we're waiting on that to start doing its thing, you got to get in here with your hands, clean hands, and you want to take the bread and you want to squeeze out any excess milk. Doesn't have to be totally dry, but you want to squeeze out most of it, and you're going to add that to the egg mixture. Or you can layer it in the bottom of your casserole, but I think it does better if it's cooked in with the, I've done it both ways, but I kind of like it better cooked in with the eggs. It's messy, but that's all right. Let me rinse off my hands. Now I have here some sliced baby Swiss cheese. And I have a mess on my stove. I'm a messy cook. Of course, I think we probably all know that by now. If you've watched this program much at all, you know that. That's all right. Now, you want to just stir this in with the eggs. Actually going to turn that up a little bit. My eye does not seem to want to be working at all this morning, actually. I like to let it set for just a minute. Now, I have a couple of tablespoons of melted butter here, and I'm just going to put some dry breadcrumbs, plain. You don't want the seasoned kind. You just want plain breadcrumbs. And I'm going to just stir that in with the butter. We're going to put this on top, and it just kind of makes it's a texture thing. It adds a little flavor, of course, but it also puts just a little tiny bit of texture in there. There we go. Now we're just going to scramble these eggs in the skillet. I like to kind of let them set for a minute and then take your spatula. I'm using a non-stick pan, so I'm using a rubber spatula. I don't like to use metal in the pans. You could add some crumbled bacon to this, or crumbled up sausage, cooked sausage or cooked bacon if you wanted to, or diced Canadian bacon would be good. You could also add some sauteed red peppers or red roasted peppers or little cherry tomatoes that you've cut in half if you wanted to add some tomato to it. It would be really good. You can really do anything you want with this. It's really good with a little bit of dill chopped up and put in here. This is just, I like some of my recipes to be starting points for you where you can customize it to your likes or dislikes. This is just the way that I like it. All righty. I'm going to take a quick break. All I'm going to do is exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to finish scrambling these eggs. They're going to take about a minute more. Clean up a little bit, and when I come back, we'll finish up the casserole, get that in the oven, and then we will start on our Danish. I'll be back in just a minute. Now all we did was finish scrambling the eggs, and I just put them in the bottom of a casserole dish. And I have here some sliced Swiss cheese, and I'm just going to lay the slices over top of the eggs. I love Swiss cheese. Oh, I just love it. I love it on a Reuben sandwich. So good. This particular one is baby Swiss, but you could use whatever you have is fine. This is a thin sliced one. And when you get to the corners, just kind of tear it in half. You want to have everything, you know, kind of covered. Let's do another half of a slice. All righty. And then we're going to take the breadcrumb mixture, which has had time to absorb the butter, and we're just going to sprinkle it, kind of loosen it up and sprinkle it over top. And again, if you want to chop some maybe chives or dill, would be really good over top of this, or mixed in with it, either one. This adds a crunch. The butter will help the breadcrumbs to brown. This is going to bake for about 15 minutes. So this is really ready start to finish in under 30 minutes. All righty, we're going to go to the oven. Put this in the oven and let it bake for just a few minutes. See if I can avoid burning myself. And then we're going to get started on our strawberry Danish. Now, this is where you can use any flavor preserve that you want. That'll be for the glaze. We've got in our big bowl, I have 3 ounces of cream cheese and 4 ounces of butter, 4 tablespoons rather, of butter. And I'm just going to use a pastry cutter and work that into the baking mix. This is not flour, this is the baking mix that you can buy at the stores. You could use puff pastry too if you wanted to. If you didn't want to make your own, you could use puff pastry, but I kind of like making my own. This is very easy to do. Sometimes you might have to, use your fingers and kind of get the butter and the cream cheese out from the blades. I love my little pastry cutter. You could also do this in a food processor and pulse it if you wanted to. Either one is fine. I just don't want to clean that big bowl of the food processor. This is a great job for your kids. Just don't let them do this part, but let them do this. Use the pastry cutter. You want this to resemble like pea sizes. You want the little pieces to be almost like the little green peas. You see how it's just kind of worked in there into clumps. Now, you want to flour your board, whatever you're working on. We're going to add a little bit of milk to our mixture. And we're going to stir that together. You're making a dough. And depending on the humidity of the day, as to how much liquid the flour absorbs, it's just a scientific fact that some days it needs more liquid than others. What you're looking for is a mixture that holds together, and I think that will be fine. Now, you do need to flour the board, and I think I'm actually just going to use the baking mix, extra baking mix. When I have a box like this, I always take my whatever's left if I don't use it all, and put it in a Ziploc bag inside the container. I think it works better. You don't want too much, but you want to have a little bit of flour, or baking mix in this case, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn this out onto the board, and we're going to knead it. Now, when a recipe says to knead, what it means, flour your hands, is to take the dough, push it like that, kind of turn it, push it like that, turn it, and so forth. You want to do this about 8 or so times. You do not want it to be so sticky that it's hard to work with, and that's why we have in this case, the baking mix. But it's true for any recipe, biscuits or whatever you're doing. You want to have enough to where it doesn't stick to your board and it's not sticky. All righty, now after you knead your dough, I just am using a sheet pan, but I'm turning it upside down so the air gets underneath and it just makes it a little crisper. If you have a rolling pin, which to be perfectly honest, I can't find mine, you would want to roll this out. But if you don't have a rolling pin, you can pat it. I'm just patting it on the board so far, making sure it's not going to stick. This is actually a baker's tool that we use so much. It's what this is for, it's a bench scraper. I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over to my baking sheet and pat it out just a little bit more on this. You want it to be, about 10 inches by 4 or 5 inches in a rectangle, or as close to a rectangle as you can get. Okay? You could also make this into individual little pastries if you wanted to. I'm using raspberry today because I adore raspberries, but you can use any flavored preserves that you want. What you want to do is take some preserves and kind of go down the center. Again, you can use any flavor you want. I just chose raspberry for today. You want to put some down the center of the Danish, and then I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to make it pretty. You want to take a paring knife and you want to cut a slat like that and fold it over. And the same thing on the bottom. And fold it over. And then you want to take a sharp knife, and if you need to dip it in the baking mix, you can. We're going to cut, you see what I'm doing? About every inch or so, we're cutting slits. About every inch, just into the jelly mixture. And you want them to be approximately the same. Here, where you cut here, you want to cut it there. Doesn't have to be exact, but it will work better if it is. Then you're going to take these and you're going to kind of pull it over, just like that. And you're making like a Danish, or if this were going to be savory, it would be a crostata. It just looks prettier. I like to leave the center kind of open because that way you can see the jelly in there, and I think it just looks prettier. You don't have to do this part. If you just want to fold the pastry over, you can. I just think it looks pretty. And then your last one. Okay? See how pretty that looks? And then we're going to take some milk and we're going to brush over the top. Or you could use a beaten egg if you wanted to. Whatever you have is fine. Where's my little pastry brush? Here's one. And I'm just going to take some milk. If you have some sugar in the raw, you could sprinkle a little sugar on it, kind of give it a little bit of a glaze, textured type thing. We're actually going to make a glaze to go on top, so we don't need to do that. This will bake for about 20 minutes. And then when it comes out, we're going to top it with a wonderful, easy to make glaze. So I'm just going to pop this in the oven. I'm going to take a quick break, clean up my mess, and when I come back, we'll make the glaze and get the hash browns done. I'll be back in just a few minutes. righty, now our Danish is baking. Our egg casserole, Swiss egg casserole is done and it's cooling. We're gonna make some quick, easy hash browns. You know, I love them, but sometimes, you know, getting your skillet and frying them, and it just can be a mess. One day I thought, why don't I try the waffle iron? It's perfect. So I've got my waffle iron preheated. This is just frozen hash browns that I've thawed. I'm going to add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and a little bit of oil to the hash browns, just to kind of help them stick together. And I'm just going to stir that up. If you want to beat an egg and put in here, you can. That'll help them. You know, as a matter of fact, let's do that. Get that over there. Let me get an egg here. I got some eggs. And we will beat this into our hash browns. Just kind of makes it a little more like a patty instead of loose. You can do them either way. Either way is fine. You could add any flavor in here that you wanted. If you wanted to add some onion powder or diced onion, you could, garlic, whatever you like. I've got this preheated and I sprayed it with just non-stick spray. And I'm just going to put the hash browns in here, spread them out, and let them cook. Great way to have them, you know, on a busy morning while you're making your scrambled eggs. Just put them in there in your waffle iron and they'll cook and they get golden brown. Takes them just a couple of minutes. While that's working, let's make our glaze for our Danish that's finishing up, because you want to glaze this when it's hot. I have some powdered sugar and a little milk and a little bit of vanilla. You just want to stir that together until it's just a nice kind of a runny consistency, just a glaze, just till the powder sugar dissolves. Just takes it a second. Now, I added vanilla, but if you want to add almond or any other flavored extract, you can. And you want it to be very, very thin, just like a glaze that you would put over top of cinnamon rolls. See how thin that is? That's what you want. You're just going to set that to the side. See how golden brown. Can you see how pretty that looks? Oh, so good. Now, our beautiful pastry is done. I just took it out of the oven and transferred it with a couple of spatulas onto my serving dish. I'm going to stir my glaze one more time. And then you want to glaze this while it's warm. And you just, however you want to do it, it's up to you. And any extra glaze, serve on the side. I don't like mine to be overly glazed, because I'm actually the person who really prefers my cinnamon rolls with no glaze. So you put as much or as little as you want. And for those that like extra, just serve it on the side, and then they can add more to it. Let that cool for about 30 minutes before you cut into it, and it'll just set up, and it will be delicious. Let's run that over there. And there you go. It's a quick, easy, in this case, raspberry Danish, but you could also make it strawberry. And our wonderful little egg casserole. Now let's check on our hash browns. There you go. You see how pretty? You can make them as golden as you want. You can let it go for about a minute more. I've got mine all the way on high. And you know, this one only makes one thing at a time. If you've got the kind that has the 4 quadrants on there, of course you could make more at one time. It just depends on how big or small your waffle iron is. Alrighty, now our hash browns are done, so we're just going to lift them out of the waffle iron. They're hot, so be careful, and put it on your plate. And there you go. You've got a crispy, delicious hash brown that you can serve with your wonderful Swiss cheese bake. I just took a little bit of dried dill and sprinkled over top. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It just adds another little layer of flavor and some color. Our beautiful raspberry tart or crostata or Danish or whatever you want to call it. And I used raspberry, but you could use strawberry, grape. It's really good with like the fig jam with some orange. You could add some orange zest to it. You could really put any kind of flavoring that you wanted. And if you wanted to mix in some chocolate chips with that, you could absolutely put some chocolate chips in there, like underneath the jelly, and it would melt, and you would have that flavor combination. You customize it to however you want it. And our wonderful, easy hash brown, just using store-bought frozen hash browns that we thawed, and just used a waffle iron, just for a quick, easy hash brown patty any day of the week. Thank you for joining with me. Try these recipes and let me know what you think, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.